All right. Well, just going to say a quick word. Just thank you all for being here. My name's Steve Pugh with KC Jazz Alive, and I'm coordinating the Vivid Visions sessions now. So we've got a panel here that is talking about common ground between local jazz organizations to help promote jazz in the city. So thank you all for being here. There's some free drinks over here in the coolers if you want a water or a soft drink. And I'm going to give it over to Steve Kraske.
Thank you. The key word there was free. Free drinks over in the corner. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you all for coming out this evening. This is really, in some ways, part two of a conversation, following up a conversation many members of this panel had about 5 months ago. And what we're trying to achieve here is a conversation about how these disparate groups with a common interest of jazz music can sort of come together and push forward at a moment of opportunity for the music, for our city, the moment of opportunity being the streetcar opening up in just a couple of weeks, maybe a week. And then also the idea of the World Cup coming here next summer and the hundreds of thousands of visitors that's going to bring to our town, and what opportunity that presents for all of us in this room to capitalize on that moment and find a way to propel the music going forward as a result of that. So that's what we're doing here this evening. Let me introduce our panel here, and it's a good one. Carl Allen is here, the endowed professor of jazz studies at UMKC's Conservatory of Music. B.J. Jansen is to his left. He's president of Kansas City Jazz Alive. On my far left, Alyssa Bell Jackson is the executive director of the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra. Jill Johnson is next to Alyssa. She is the interim executive director of the American Jazz Museum. David Bassi is my friend, my former student. He's president of the Kansas City Jazz Ambassadors, and he's a performer of note around this town. And next to David is Rick Truman, executive director of the Folly Theater. Let's give them all a round of applause for coming out here tonight. Yeah. Hey, let's start on an upbeat note. I'm wondering what excites you most about the current state of jazz in Kansas City. What's feeling good right now? What's working? Who wants to jump? BJ, thank you.
I'll get us started. Just one word, opportunity.
Do you want to elaborate on that, Mr. Jansen? Yeah.
There's a whole lot of opportunity, and not just around FIFA, not just around the streetcar, but there has been and there is and there will be a lot of opportunity in this city to do more things and great things around jazz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carl Allen, hop in here. Mr. Happy.
Yes. Okay. So that's a kind of a hot topic for me.
Okay.
Simply because this is my 5th year here at UMKC. And a few months before I started, I think around in July or early August of 21, I was invited to be on the Zoom call with all of the movers and the shakers here in town. And one of the things they wanted to know was what was my vision for jazz at UMKC. And I remember one of the things I said, well, first of all, I would really love to see our students more actively involved on the scene. And I would like for us to have an educational component at the Jazz Festival. And then the heads just started looking around the room, going up and down, and this is all on Zoom. And someone said, we don't have a jazz festival here. I'm like, what? I played the festival here many years ago, and then, of course, they went on to talk about why and what happened. But then the thing that many of them said, which I have found to be true, is that there's a lot of music happening here in town, but everyone works in silos. And that is kind of a problem. Now, I'm coming from New York, where it's just one big community, you know? And not that everybody gets along there, but, you know, people kind of know what's going on. one of my best friends was here in town last week, Christian McBride, with Brad Meldow, and when I told my students about 2 weeks before, they didn't even know about it. This happens regularly. Things that are happening at the Folly, great things coming up at the Folly, and sometimes, so I don't know how to rectify that. It's not that the venues are not advertising, they're advertising, but the sense of community, I think, could use a little bit of help. Just in terms of just the awareness of what we're doing, and that even impacts what I deal with all the time of just trying to get our numbers up in the jazz program. Like this Friday, we're having a jam session for local high school kids. And it's just a challenge, just getting a response from high school band directors, right? So it's just, but until any scene has a real sense of community, I think there will be some kind of challenge. And I think that's something that would be great if we can kind of work on. And then, of course, you and I were just talking about the challenge of not having a listening room. Now, of course, we have wonderful theaters, the Folly, we have the Kauffman, but I get calls from musicians all the time. Say, man, I'm coming through St. Louis, I'm going to Columbus. Where can I play in Kansas City? And of course, the only listening room that I know of is the Blue Room. But like I said, it's they're not available. Then what? And for a city that has so much music happening, it's still hard to wrap my head around there. And I was telling Steve, like, I just basically don't play here because there's not a listening room. You play and people are more interested in that delicious steak that they're eating. And they're talking louder than the music. It's like, man, I can't, And so I'm kind of venting, but I see so much, as you said, so much potential here, so much opportunity. And I think if these are things that we can address, it'll make a world of difference just on the scene. Because there's a lot of really wonderful musicians here in town, too.
Yeah.
But.
Well, let me just reframe the question for Alyssa. Alyssa, what excites you most about the jazz scene here in Kansas City? Thank you, Carl. Yeah.
That's his way of saying I didn't answer the question.
That's what we're standing on here. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to echo what Carl says, because that's kind of in the last discussion we had together. This came up a lot of the siloed, organizations, and I think for us, we've been doing a lot to try to reach out and collaborate. So, the collaboration with KC Jazz Alive on our first concert of the season. We're doing our final concert at the Gym Theater, and working with community education groups to try to do jam sessions and things, trying to figure out how to have the conversations to see what the next steps are for collaborating and what it is that we offer versus what you offer, and how can we do those things in an efficient way so that nobody is having to go out of their step outside of the bounds of what they're already doing. I think we all do unique things and we have things to offer. So I think it's just having these conversations that's exciting to me, and that we're sitting here having this panel discussion for a second time, which is great, but hopefully that these continue kind of individually outside of here as well.
What do you think is behind that siloing, Alyssa, that Carl brings up, and you're agreeing with it? What pushes that? What fuels that in this community? And
I think part of it is, like Carl mentioned also, that there's a lot of talent in Kansas City, and there's a lot of really strong musicians, not just musicians, but in the artist community. So there's a ton of talent. Kansas City feels like a place that we can call home and that we can be expressive in our, individual ways. And I think a lot of times it feels like you're sort of out there doing your thing on your own, and everybody wants to make a mark or make an impact, And I think a lot of people don't realize that you can do that a lot more efficiently if you collaborate with others. And so I think that ends up happening sometimes for organizations, but sometimes it doesn't. And I think historically, at least for the jazz organizations that I've observed, I don't know that it's necessarily that people are trying to make their mark. I think it's just figuring out how we can come together to try to lift the things that we're doing independently for one another.
I think though also, in speaking with some musicians here, not all, of course, but some of them have expressed an inner frustration, not pointing the finger at anyone, but they would say, here in Kansas City, we have this rich history of Charlie Parker, Mary Lou Williams, and there's the expectation that the musicians would still be kind of conceptually in that zone.
Right.
However, for some of the musicians, they say, well, I'm trying to do something different. I'm trying to do something more modern, whatever that might be. But they just feel like there's this cloud, like they have to stay within that tradition, So, that's something that some people have expressed.
David Bassi, you've been in this town for decades. You performed in this town for decades. Are you buying this notion of silos, or do you see it? What are your thoughts here?
I've been here. Well, I played my first jazz festival here in 1983, and I did the television and radio for the festival itself, which was nice at the time because people saw my face on the TV, which was a cool thing, good for my band and my music career. So we had a same club for 7 years that we played at, City Light, 7425 Broadway in Waldo. And it was the end of the bus line and kind of a nice divide between Mission Hills and Troost Avenue and all the different places in Kansas City, and easy to get to on the bus or easy to drive your Jaguar or whatever over there. So it was a cool thing. But so that was a long, long time ago. And at that time, it was the same, Carl. I mean, it was still the same thing. It was hard to get a jazz festival going. When the jazz festival did get going, it was very successful. And then after a while, people forgot that jazz is what brings travelers to Kansas City. Jazz is what people come here for. They come here to buy some barbecue, eat a steak, but they want to hear the jazz to go with that. And if they don't, they leave disgruntled by Kansas City. And the people in Kansas City forget that jazz has anything to do with Kansas City. So what are we going to do? Are we going to be New Orleans, where every musician has to play down on the Swanee River, blah, 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 like they all complain about down in New Orleans? Oh, we got to play all this traditional stuff all the time. We don't do that here. Everybody goes their own way. We're all having a good time playing the music we play, but we deserve to be heard, and we deserve to have a jazz festival. We deserve to have a blues and jazz festival because we are the town where blues and jazz meet. You say Kansas City jazz. Oh, that's Count Basie. He plays the blues. That's Jay McShann. He played the blues. That's Mary Lou Williams. She was really good at the blues. All those people. Yes, they played modern music too, but even Bird played mostly the blues. He wrote songs over the blues a lot of times. And so, okay, so that's what the way I look at it is that the longer view is that we have all the trappings. We have the nice theaters. We have great school programs. We have great musicians. We have a lot of nice nightclubs. Shut up and listen to the music, and you'll really learn something about this town. We have styles, all kind of styles, and they're really good. And the musicians are top notch. And your students, impeccable. That guy, Henry, Henry, that guy, and he doesn't want to leave here. So that's a different thing. The other thing is young musicians say, oh, I'm just going to play in Kansas City. It's great here because they can make a living. So we have to figure out as an overview to this is what's better than just making a living at playing your music and living in this town and not ever seeing the wonderful artists who come to the Folly, or artists who would come here because of a real jazz festival in Kansas City.
Rick Truman, what are your thoughts here from the Folly?
Oh, God. There's so many. I mean, back to your original question of
no
what
one
am I
cares about
excited
my questions. People
I wanna
just
answer it,
do
'cause
it,
I had
say
an
what they
answer.
want to say.
I mean, it rides the line. What excites me is the word that came to mind was volume, which kind of goes hand in hand with BJ's comments of opportunity, because there is so much happening here. Now, the flip side of that is we're all kind of competing for the same market, and we're all, fighting for dates on the calendar, frankly. I mean, Alyssa and I put an event on the same date last year because we didn't communicate, and we ended up with the same thing. We are the first show of our jazz series this year. Pete Escovedo was here, and Marilyn May was singing the Starlight Gala that same night, and the new jazz festival that's cropped up was that same night. And so there were 200 people in a 1,000-seat venue to hear a Latin jazz icon. So I think that part of the reason for that, I think, is going back to the idea of silos. I think we're all trying so hard to do our own thing. It's hard sometimes to stop and go, okay, now wait a minute. If I just spend a little bit more time and figure out what some other things are going on, maybe we can make something happen. But there's too much to do and too little time to do it all, that it's hard to take a breath and figure out how to do that together.
Yeah. Jill, what would you throw in here? What you're excited about as the new interim director, executive director of the American Jazz Museum?
What I would say is I definitely want to follow up on opportunity.
You know, Jill, I don't know if you know this about the music. We sing into microphones. We talk into microphones here. We play into microphones. Yes. Yeah.
What I would say is the opportunity piece. I totally understand what he is saying. I think there is so much opportunity within the community to collaborate, to partner with one another, instead of trying to do it all on our own. And there are opportunities not only for us to partner with one another, but we should partner with restaurants. We should be partnering with attractions. We should be putting together tours that keep people in our community a lot longer than they are. I think we're so anxious to bring people to our venue. We forget to tell them, go down the street, they have this offering this afternoon, or they have this offering this evening. These are things that would make us more dynamic as a music industry city if we would collaborate with one another and come together. All of us get in a room before the start of January and say, these are my primary dates, these are my primary dates. Let's look at opportunities and say, okay, how could we bring one major event every single year where all of us are at the table? We all play on the fact that we have an audience that we can bring to the table. The problem is people want bigger and better, especially when we're in the economy that we're in right now. You know, if people have to spend $50 or $60, you know, they want to see more than one artist, okay? You know, so we have to do what we're doing to expand the scope and the view of what we have to offer here in the city. And we do that by collaborating, but we also think on a much higher level. I've been to Nashville. Kansas City wins my heart every time. Chicago, you know, all of these cities that have a lot of what we have already. Louisiana, come on. We have some of the same offerings. I think what has not happened is the fact that we're not collaborating. And I was so glad when I came here and I started serving as interim executive director. She was one of the first people that reached out to me and said, how can we collaborate? And what I've been trying to do is to attend other people's events, because I want to see what can we do, what can we bring to the table. If it's the publication that we can put in our museum, we can do that. But what are some of the other opportunities? Okay, if somebody comes and says, Jill, we want a gift basket from you. Okay, we can do that. But what would happen if we collaborated across the board and put a gift basket together for everybody's primary events? That is huge. That is significant when we can send those type of national products and gift offerings to the community. If we put in a publication like that, like the Independent, and said, oh, we're going to be offering this. If we put it in the Jazz publication and said, if you want an opportunity to come to Kansas City, this is what we're going to offer you. Those are things that would drive people to the city, and we're not doing that. Not yet.
If I'm hearing you right, Jill, you're suggesting that if this organization perhaps convened a meeting of the godfathers and godmothers late in the year, early in the new year, that might be helpful when it comes to coordinating schedules and what you're all looking at, if I'm hearing you right.
That's exactly right. And, you know, what would happen if we all just said, okay, we're going to select 3 great bands, whatever it is. If you've got bands, if you've got students, if you've got the orchestra, what would happen if we just went in to the gym theater and provided a program where we all had the ability to showcase what we have to offer? On one, you know, it could be a weekend, it could be one day, whatever. Those are the level of thinking that we need to come together, instead of thinking, okay, I've got this event, and how do I bring all of these people together?
Right.
You know, and my thing is this, is once you bring everybody together, eventually people are going to know who they like, and they're probably going to say, oh, I need to be over here. This is what I really like. But there is those opportunities that we can truly come together and partner.
There's some value in repetition of getting together. It also sounds like you're saying. You know, let me ask about hard questions here. I mentioned in the opening, this is the second time some members of this group have gotten together to have this conversation. First time was 4 or 5 months ago. Today, it occurred to me I should listen back to that last conversation 4 or 5 months ago to remind myself what we talked about. And what we were talking about at that time was this magical word that BJ brought up, which was opportunity. We were talking about opportunity in connection with the opening of the streetcar. We were talking about opportunity, particularly with the coming of the World Cup. And the conversation 5 months ago was, hey, there's this pot of money that FIFA will be distributing, maybe through the Kansas City Arts Group, whatever, that would perhaps fund jazz musicians for the duration of the World Cup at the airport, on the streetcar, downtown, Barney Alves Plaza, whatever the situation is. And the talk 4 or 5 months ago was, we got to get together a proposal and submit it, make sure we get in on the front end to get a shot at getting this pot of money, because, I'm going to continue this for a moment, this was going to be an opportunity not only for the World Cup, but to expand and propel this music going forward for the months to come. And so my question is, did that happen? BJ?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So thank you. You're a consummate journalist. So a shout out, and thank you for keeping us accountable. So the answer is no, not to my knowledge that has happened.
And the question then would be from the good journalist, why not?
Yeah. So I think one of the things is, and you stated it in your question, this panel is different than it was before.
That's right.
We've had some leadership changes. We've had some different organizational changes. We've added new people that maybe weren't part of it before. But I think the one thing that I will say, and going back to the opportunity, is the fact that we're here having this conversation is a big deal.
I just would suppose we're in mid-October right now.
Yeah.
It may not be too late. I don't know that. It may
I would
not be
agree.
too late.
The opportunity is still there. And as I was having some conversations prior to this with some of the members of the previous panel, it's, hey, this should probably be something we do monthly.
Not a bad idea.
Right.
What do we know today about the opportunity that is in front of us about the World Cup via FIFA, via the arts community sort of coordinating the, jazz music or all kinds of music going out into the community for the World Cup. Do we know anything more about that today than we did before? Alyssa, you're grabbing a microphone. You can bail BJ out now big time by talking.
I mean,
a
you
little
know, I grabbed it. Yeah, it's over to you, Alyssa.
bit. Yeah.
No, I just was going to pop in here because there's the ArtsKC task force that's been meeting monthly for the past year or so. And they, you know, it was, I think all of us at one time have probably been to some of those meetings. But their goal initially was, how can we as an arts community come together to present something to the FIFA folks that will be exactly what you're saying, which is, what is it that we want to highlight? We need to give them specifics, all of the stuff, just kind of like a grant proposal, essentially. And that presentation is either just happened or is about to happen. But what it ended up getting geared toward was this ArtsKC Go app creation of an app that would essentially tell everybody where and when things are happening and give you an opportunity to purchase tickets. From my understanding, that's kind of where that group and that pool of money is being funneled, if it ends up being funneled.
Is there a pot of money out there?
There is a pot of money, but the question is, how are they going to allocate it? So I think that's the discussion that's happening now, from my understanding.
Rick, you grabbed a microphone. Yeah.
So I attended the City Council Finance Committee meeting yesterday in support of the ArtsKC request. It got tabled until next week. And so they're going to hopefully hear it next Tuesday. The ask is $100,000, but it is, as Alyssa said, in support of promoting the ArtsKC Go website and app so that people can know what's going on in town. And the whole pitch really is, this isn't just about World Cup. It's a great opportunity, but it's also about branding that resource so that people in this community and in the surrounding regions are more aware of it, that World Cup is an opportunity to get in front of people, and then it's ongoing after that. So it's an investment in our long-term sustainability, not just this one finite period of time.
Why isn't there a pot of money available to help entertain the hundreds of thousands of people who will be coming to our community for the World Cup?
That is the $5 million question. Because
and doesn't FIFA have that kind of resource available that we could capitalize on?
From what I have been hearing on the periphery, there is not great communication between FIFA and the individual host cities, and there's questionability about how the money gets to them and where it goes.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to jump in here.
Please.
FIFA's never done this large of an event before, and they're figuring it out as they go. So it's.
But wouldn't it behoove, I'm just trying to push here a little bit, wouldn't it behoove all these organizations to have some kind of proposal on the table in case they're grasping for straws and say, Jazz, Kansas City, yeah, let's go this way, and we would have something on the table. BJ?
Yeah, so I think the answer is yes, but where I would push us is, do we need FIFA and do we need a pool of money, and what are we already doing that's great that we're just not talking about? And maybe that's part of the collaboration, and maybe that's just showcasing what we're doing and coordinating, and that is the magic sauce.
Oh, Carl.
No, I just had one comment. Being here just over a year and from the East Coast, jazz is scattered. I mean, it's all over the place. Yeah. And you're talking about FIFA. Nobody's talking about the airport. You guys collectively saying, the home of jazz, Kansas City Jazz should be all over the darn airport. I can't go through Memphis Airport without seeing all that memorabilia and all that stuff that I buy. And so that's just a comment. It's about placemaking, and from a placemaking point of view, you got to start when they come in and off the planes, right there, and at Union Station as well as they come off the train.
We talked, that comment was made 5 months ago. In fact, I made it. I just come back I just thrown through Nashville. I just been in New Orleans, lots of music in the airports. I came home to my hometown, and the airport was silent.
It's dead.
So again,
It's a
Carl.
it's a branding question, right? So part of it is, what is it that Kansas City wants to be known for? Because now you're talking about needing to get city officials involved, right? If you're talking about the airport. But I still think it's a great idea to be able to get off, on your way to baggage claims, Kansas City, to, home of jazz or whatever. But here's an idea, and I don't know if this is something that already has happened here before. I've seen it in a few cities where, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, there's a Kansas City International Jazz Week, of course, coordinated between the Folly and the Kauffman and the Gym and the Blue Room, different venues, where people can buy a package, let's say. You go on Saturday to this venue, on Sunday to this one, on Tuesday to, and people can just, in this way, people have tickets and they can go from show to show to show. But the idea is that it shows that people are trying to work together.
Mm-hmm.
It's right now it just feels like everyone's competing. And I don't know, I'm saying this out of ignorance, if the scene is large enough to really be competing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like we do our fundraiser, our annual April concert at the Folly, and we have, great musicians, Marshall Jilks, and last year we had Camille Thurman, and you look out in the audience, you get 30 people. Just like, what? So how does that happen? So people are coming through town, and there are musicians here. They're great venues. There has to be a concerted effort to find a way to get people to know that all of this stuff is happening and people are working together.
I'm going to keep going here. I covered politics in this town for 25 years. I'm here to tell you that if this group of people in front of me here got together, put together a one-sheet proposal saying this is what we would like to do during the World Cup, we would need this much money, and you're going to sign it from Carl Allen at the Conservatory of Music, and BJ from Jazz Alive, and Alyssa from the Jazz Orchestra, and Jill from the Museum, and David from the Ambassadors, and Rick from the Folly. That has power attached to it. Politicians love it when there are lots of different groups signing on to the same cause. I'm just suggesting there's an opportunity here, what Carl says, and to really tap into this World Cup thing and promote this music in a way that hasn't been promoted in this town for years and years and years. That's just, I'm the moderator, I'm not a panelist, but I can't help myself here. Bill, your hand was up in the air.
It just happens that there's something on the table here that I'd like to call the panelists too. And this is just, something out of the blue, just thinking, and this is just a start. And sorry, we don't have paper copies for everybody, but we can share it out after the session. But essentially, yeah, it's about highlighting some of the things we're already doing, maybe things that we don't know each other are doing, and some new things, but building it into a package collaboratively to where this is something that we can collectively promote it and say and highlight and brand that this is what Kansas City is, and jazz is a key part of that. So just throwing it out there. And this is just the first pass. Sorry.
Bill.
First of all, I salute the effort for unity. I think it feels like there's room. It's the reverse of the Tower of Babel. We're all listening to each other. We're identifying issues. Okay? I think some of the failure has been project management. So there's two schools of project management. One basically says, we're going to build this grand project. We're going to bring architects, and we're going to bring designers. We're going to bring all of these constituents together to create this thing that is a vision, and we're going to go build that thing. That's traditional. But I've been in tech, and they broke that tradition. Their method is get going. Okay? And they developed something called Agile Project Management. Agile Project Management means decide the direction and learn as you go in the course of doing.
Neat.
And you do it by short sprints. The agile part is getting ready to move because we got into the market. We discovered something about students' involvement. We go, oh, that could be connected here. And the next thing we learn about is receptive ideas, encountering objections, finding out the stumbling blocks and roadblocks at the public levels. So agile means you sprint to the next thing and you do what is the most leverageable thing, the most important next step, and you do it by next week. And you do it by the next week and the next week. Now, that doesn't have to be necessarily that level of increment to make everybody go, oh, I've got so much to do with my own job, but you do it in such a fashion that it gets accomplished in the incremental way. So I think that can happen, and I also want to introduce, besides the coordination of dates that would do, the packages, that's a beautiful thing. Tie that back into the tourism aspect that you brought up. Why don't we talked about that, Dave, some time back, about having literally jazz packages that people would buy.
That's what I'm looking for.
And you target every jazz lover in New York City to go, John Hammond discovered Kansas City in Chicago coming out of the Cotton Club. That's the lead-in appeal. And he heard on the radio from Kansas City, booming out across, this band, he couldn't believe their jamming was non-stop. They just kept rocking.
And actually, I was at that so-called Jazz and Blues Festival, but what was interesting, there were people from Arkansas, there were people from Oklahoma, there were people from Nebraska, jazz fans at that.
And blues fans.
Yeah, and so that packaging idea, the coordination idea, put it together and advertise it and people will come.
Well, because the part of the challenge, again, is if people just say, I'm going to, hypothetically, I'm going to be in Kansas City in the middle of October for a wedding. What is there to do? There should be a site or an app or something that you can, people have to know about it. There is. Yeah, and so, but to your point, I think that's an excellent point, because a lot of times, all of us up here, we find ourselves in meetings, and then it's like you're in a meeting just to be meeting.
Yeah.
And you walk away and you don't know what the next step is, and then nothing happens. Yeah.
This gathering has been death by meeting in the past.
Well.
Because wonderful things get talked about, but nobody lists an action item
Let's
at
get
the
action.
end of it that says, this is the day we're going to get done next.
And if you're going to coordinate calendars for 2026, you need it to start like now, or yesterday, not the end of the year, or the beginning of the year.
And go back to Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You're shaking your head, some of you might know. It basically says why. The big rocks go in first. So on that jazz calendar, coordination event, your events go plunk, plunk. Anything that's happening with you folks, plunk, plunk. So now you have basically the cornerstone events coming to jazz, so that suddenly, I was equally surprised. I heard somebody say that the Jazz and Blues Fest out there at Monarch Stadium was like, where'd this come from?
Yeah, I had that reaction too.
Where did it come from? Was it the Monarch?
Tell you?
Or was it
I can tell you. You want me to tell you? I'll tell you. Okay. I want to introduce a lady that I met on Friday at the Blues and Jazz Festival, not the jazz, the Blues and Jazz Festival, because we ain't doing nothing yet. We're going to get doing things. But anyway, Betty is over here. I don't remember your last name. Is it Betty Berry? So she is on the board of the Kansas City Blues Society, and they had an event just like you on Saturday down in Knuckleheads, poorly attended because this festival cropped up out of nowhere. And the guy who cropped up out of nowhere is the publicity director for the Monarchs. So he's pretty good. He's a good promoter. He's more than pretty good. He had like a 10,000 people hip hop festival like 4 weeks ago. I talked to him today. He apologized for not being here tonight because he's got another festival next week. He said, "Call me after the next festival." But so he had 2 major blues acts, 2 major jazz acts, and then he said, "Wait a minute, that's all the money I have." So he was talking to Logan Richardson, to Bobby Watson, to various acts of various people, and he asked, I think the jazz orchestra too, and so on. No, he didn't say anything to you? I'm sorry. But his name is Mike Hanna. He's the promotional director of the Monarchs. It's a great stadium. They've got beautiful boxes that they use for dressing rooms for the bands because there were no patrons to sit in them. There was nobody paying $5,000 for the box that you could, have Stanley Clark come up and have a drink with you or whatever, whatever it was. But so it's a perfect place for what you envisioned, Carl, because it's got everything. But they were using a small portion of the ball field. So what I see is if we take that and we go open it up a little bit, the Charlie Parker celebration, that's something we do right now. And one of the things that happened to me in this conversation with Mike Hanna, who he had money and then he spent it and then he waited to get more money and then he went out to spend it. So he called people like Logan Richardson is one. I had 6 hours of conversation with Logan. The first conversation was well over 2 hours.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it was,
Logan?
and then I called him. He says, I'm in Switzerland. What's going on? When can I come out? I want to come to Kansas City. I want to play this festival. How come I have never been asked to play the Charlie Parker celebration? And I said, would you be willing to go to 3 clubs a day and play 3 times a day for 10 days straight? He said, oh, absolutely. I would absolutely do that. I said, well, I will put your name in the hopper, Logan, because, he wants to come back here. He wants to play here. He is of this town. He was in the 7th grade when I met him, and he was playing like a crazy man when he was, just a kid, and now he's in that place where he's 40 something, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do next? I got to grow up now. I got to be a real guy and do business and make more records and do more things. But he said, so anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, but like it was the same with Bobby, who's this guy? And I said, well, he's doing this thing. He said, well, I put a thing in with my band, but I don't think he's going to do it. And then he called, Hannah called me and said, would you be Bobby's band? And I said, if Bobby will have this, absolutely. And Bobby said basically the same, yeah, I'll play with those guys. That'd be great. We've made records before, so it worked out. It was great. We had a ball. But it would have been better with thousands of people. Just like it would have been better if you had 1,000 people at your theater that night and Knuckleheads had 800 or 1,000 people down there. And this metropolitan area is 3 million people, right? Is that what they say? Where are the people? How come they're not coming out to hear blues and jazz? And how come we're not framing it in a way that they can understand what it is and come out and see it and enjoy it the way that we enjoy it? Because we've got the history. We've got 100 years plus history. If you read Jam Magazine, this issue, I just I edited a piece about this kind of music starting here in 1870. 50 years before it got popular, it was being played here in Kansas City. That's crazy. And people don't know that, but that's amazing. That makes us the birthplace of real, of this music, whatever this kind of music is. And so anyway, I'm very passionate about it, but I think did you say that, Kraske, that we should, if we all went before the city council or something, that they would listen to us?
Or if you put together a one-page sheet and you
Yeah.
signed it all from this organization, I think that has some power. That was my comment.
Absolutely.
Don't misquote me, David.
Shorter, quicker than this even, smaller, that says not a lot more than $100,000, because we need money.
You need money.
Yeah, you need money to do it. A lot more than $100,000.
But there have been too many places that I've gone to in Kansas City to hear jazz where the venue is empty and there is a great performance. And and we have guests coming to Kansas City from New York and other places. And it's very embarrassing. Yeah, because they're bringing their best and there's nobody there to listen to it. So it's important about collaborating and pulling everything together so that you can have the kind of impact that you want to have with jazz.
Bill, hang on. Betty had her hand up. I'm going to come right back to Bill. Yeah.
I just wanted you to respond to David, and I'm not sure when Mike Hanna started communicating with the jazz world, but he contacted me in May of this year. Now, at that time, we already had our date and Knucklehead set, and we were advertising it. But to his credit, initially he was going to have jazz on Friday night and blues on Saturday night. And when I told him that we had a big show playing the Knuckleheads that Saturday night, and if he could, would he please change the date and switch them around, he did do that. Now, contacting us in May for an event in September,
October.
it was short. Done. Yes, it was a little short. I'm not sure when he first had this idea, but I did think that the coordination should have started long before May of this year for an event in October.
Has there been any follow-up with him on whether he plans to do another one next year?
Oh, he absolutely plans to do one next year. Yeah.
He wants to make it an annual event.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Because you might think he would have been discouraged by the turnout this year, but I'm not hearing that at all. Yeah.
No, he's not.
You know, what I said to him is you have to look at this was the first year, and there are growing pains with any event of that magnitude.
Yeah.
So I think that once he communicates with more of us, gets more word out on it when it's coming up, I think the attendance will be better. Not schedule it when there are other big events happening that weekend. And I really know that it affected our attendance in Knuckleheads because I had so many people come up to our table and I said, oh, tomorrow night we're having this big show in Knuckleheads, this blues show, and they said, I've already got tickets for the second night. Tickets for the entire event. That's what people have. For the entire event.
That would be, you know, if we all could coordinate with Hannah and kind of clear our calendars for that weekend so that.
Sounds like he should be included. Bill, you had your hand up a second ago.
I was just going to contribute when you mentioned that the clubs are empty. Well, if you look at stats, jazz record buying constitutes something like 1.5% to 2% of the record consumers. So if you apply that to 2 million people in this area, we have 40,000 people that potentially are buying record product or music online, whatever it happens to be. But that's only scratching the surface because we're a jazz town on top of it. You know, so there's ample opportunity in terms of market segment and targeting. But the other side of that is, if we're going to target, we should do the tourist market targeting. What nations are coming to this city for the FIFA event?
And we don't know that yet.
Even closer than that.
As soon as we do know, we have that request in to do online targeted. I mean, we all get. Meta knows that I'm a jazz guy who just by all of the stuff keeps coming at me on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
And they know where I am because when I go to Florida in the winter, guess what? Boom, 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 all the jazz stuff down there is coming at me. So we have very discreet marketing capabilities these days to reach people in Germany or to reach them in whatever particular soccer teams are going to be.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk
Grab
about,
that mic, Carl.
when you're talking about marketing, there has to be an intentional effort to know who you're actually going after, right? Because it's easy to say, well, we got 40,000 jazz fans who are buying records, but who are they? And how do you get to them? Right. You know, I still say, if this is something we want to grow, you know, you deal with the balance of, in theory, it's the older people who have the money, the disposable income to be able to do this. But if we're trying to grow an audience, we have to get to these young people, right? Because, you know, so for instance,
They're snarky puppy fans, and they're Wolfpack fans, and whatever you want to call some form of jazz.
And they bring their own crowd. Is this a young jazz musician? They're bringing their
well, this is what happened. Like, for instance, for the Kauffman, when Christian was there with Brad, one of my students who works there part-time gathered up about 20 of our students, and they all went down to get the student pricing, right? So, you know, you can get them to go in groups. But the other thing I want to say is that we keep talking about FIFA. We got to be thinking beyond FIFA, because FIFA's only 1 year.
Yeah.
Right? So the whole thing of when you build something great, it should be able to outlive a season. So it's not just about, because what happens if we build all this stuff on FIFA and they decide, like you said, they don't know what they're doing. They decide, nah, we're going to go in another direction. Mm-hmm. Then what? Mm-hmm. So it's got to be bigger than that. It's got to be thinking bigger and past FIFA. I mean, it's great to be able to have something while that's here. But one, what happens if, not that they're not coming, but they're coming, but they don't want to be associated with what we're trying to do. And then what happens, even if it's hugely successful, to build from that for the following year and following season. So
part of the challenge is what he said, is you have to build a mechanism for this to occur on a regular basis.
Well, let's talk about that, because my clock suggests to me we've got about 7 minutes left here. Bill mentioned a magic phrase a few minutes ago, action items coming out of this meeting. I've heard about the different ideas, meeting monthly, jazz ticketed events, or for jazz weekends, or whatever you want to call it, a proposal to FIFA to ask for money, a connection with Mike Hanna from the Monarchs to bring him into this thing. And I guess I'm going to leave it at the feet of our panelists. What are our action steps going forward out of tonight? What do you want to see happen? Alyssa?
I would love to meet regularly, but I just also wanted to mention, we were talking about the siloing earlier and the Blues and Jazz Festival, and it's like, I love the idea of us having a festival or a week of celebrations or whatever we end up wanting to do together, but then just keeping in mind that if there's already a jazz festival, Blues and Jazz Festival that's going on, is there a way of collaborating with that or expanding on that? That's not during the World Cup, so it's sort of not what we're talking about here, but I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. So maybe just communicating with Mr. Hanna, maybe David, since you have his contact information.
Sounds like he needs to come to a monthly meeting.
You can invite him to our next meeting.
but if his thing is going to be the same time every year,
yeah,
you know, Charlie Parker's the same time. I mean,
yeah,
it's just easy enough to carve out a time. Yeah. And it looks like all of this stuff is kind of in the fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, maybe April, you know, spring, early spring, before school gets out, you know.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff happening all year round, and that's where the collaboration piece comes in, I think, is understanding we do have these cornerstones already happening. This is beyond FIFA. This is something that we can take forward regardless of the World Cup or not. Like, that needs to live on. I would say, as far as agile methodology and incrementality, you know, the next step, it's all incremental, it's all iterative, right? So you got to have that first push, that first thing that creates the velocity. So as far as the next step, I know nobody wants another meeting, but I think calendaring the monthly meeting is a key piece to keep the accountability and the collaboration going. That's right. There's got to be a iterative. Right.
Wow.
And then the question becomes,
Well-
is this something that can be done? Is this something that can be done via Zoom? Would that make it easier?
Grab the microphone, Carl. Carl's
Yes.
asking about whether we can meet via Zoom.
Yeah. You know, because it makes it a lot easier for people to be able to get to, but I say in terms of the next steps, one really simple thing we could do is create an email list for us up here. I'm sure you've already got dates already booked into the spring because I've already seen some of them up. I'm sure you, so my point is hypothetically, let's say for instance, you just happen to have something happening on March 29th. I'm just throwing something out. You guys have something happening on April 2nd. Okay, well, so maybe we can put something together at the gym, maybe sandwiched in between or right around that time. We already got a block of time that we can create this Kansas City Jazz Week or whatever. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just one idea, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's create a new thing that we can all take on, because then you get into the, I already have a full-time job, I already have. We've got it already.
Right.
So these is a good one, in that there are already things in the ground. There is already, Carl, you were absolutely right, there's, the public has already booked.
Right.
That's already going on. We've
Right.
already
Yep.
Right.
for next summer's Kelly Park event. So let's use what we have and link it together.
Yep. So, in
What's already happening, because that's the challenge. It's all already happening all the time.
that's right.
So it's just about how do we let people know.
But part of that is that they suggested email. The other part of that is the Zoom meeting. Prior to the Zoom meeting, there needs to be a calendar from each organization, an upcoming
Yep.
calendar.
One
so
calendar
that-
with everything on it.
Well,
Mhm.
these are separate calendars then, but it would at least let you know what the others are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to help one another.
Share calendar.
If you each contributed your greatest strength, your biggest challenge, your biggest opportunity, the opportunity being those things that you think are going to propel your organization. And if we know all those complementary things, then that can start to form a calendar, and that can start to form a single ambition for the community.
Good idea.
It sounds like we need, the next step that you all need to do is get a piece of paper, sign it as your organization. Whether or not it's going to get you money for FIFA, who cares? It's the, as long as you have that document, then you can have more power with city council, it could be with anybody else who is currently siloed. It's like, hey, here's this group, let's work together and not be siloed. Just like, if it was created, you could go to the Mutual Music Foundation's professional networking thing tomorrow and be like, hey, we exist.
Yes, ma'am.
But I want to take, so, yes, this is about long haul, but we need to also take advantage of the exposure during World Cup, because people will be tuning in because it's World Cup, and it'll be an opportunity for us to get local information into local people's needs that we don't have the opportunity to budget-wise currently. Does that make sense?
Does.
And I would say this, following up with what you're saying there, as a person who's worked in the travel and tourism industry, Convention and Visitors Bureau, people make up their minds about once they're in a city, if they have a great experience, they're going to build on that and they're going to come back. So it is extremely important that when we have these 650,000 people, that the jazz industry is literally captivating these people and saying, this is what we have to offer. You absolutely have to build a girls' weekend, a vacation. If you have students who are looking to study music and specifically jazz, bring them back. We will connect them with the people that they need to talk to. Right. So we have to do the work up front. And I promise you, we keep talking about this, and before we know it, someone else is going to do it.
Yeah.
And we're going to be sitting back looking at woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah.
We have to get busy, put those dates in place. I totally agree with what you said as well. we bring more people to the table. But even if we worked with just the people who are in this room right now,
Piece right here, right now.
yes, if we just did that, how much more would we be further down the road? And I know everybody is busy, and I know that for a fact, but at the same time, it will reap huge dividends if we could come together and we could work together to showcase what Kansas City's jazz is all about.
You know, it's interesting because you said you were in tourism. We're talking about the airport. I just got back Sunday from a tour.
Well, let me just say something just real quick.
Yeah.
We went to the airport and talked to them. The prices are outrageous. So unless you are coming together with Super Bowl funding, you know, now I don't know
I mean,
about
prices
everybody else
to get people in there.
to advertise out
Advertise.
to the airport, it's outrageous.
But there's no advertisement there today.
It's not, but we need,
price
this is
themselves
something.
out,
Right.
They have priced themselves out.
But
Their
it
prices
like
have spoken.
this could be literally our next project. After FIFA, we go to the city or even before that and say, why is there nothing showcasing jazz? You know, these are things that we could be doing, but we're not going to be able to do these things all by ourselves. We're going to have a real big sugar daddy. And I don't know him yet.
David just mentioned the word branding, and
Uncle Sugar.
I jump on that as well and say I think one of the important things we have to educate people on is the why. Does the average Kansas Citian know that we are a UNESCO city of music? No. Does the average Kansas Citian understand the history of jazz and why it's important? No. We say we're a jazz town, but in reality, the average Kansas Citian, does not mean a lot to. But I think if we can spend some time with an airport presence, if we can spend some time educating the average Kansas Citian on why their cultural heritage matters, then we can reach beyond the 40,000 people who are already buying those albums and get them in our doors. But I think we have to have a joint branding effort about why jazz is important and matters and still should be alive.
Just two final things. There's power in this room with all of you together. I'm hearing talk about a future phone call, Zoom session. I'm hearing 15 minutes. Who's going to coordinate this?
BJ.
BJ, you're on.
Wow. Okay. And no, it's not going to be a 15-minute scrum stand-up, I think. We're going to need more than 15, but yeah.
But
We can start here. We can start
right
right
here.
here.
You know what I think is really important?
Cut it down to
You
one page.
mentioned, I think, Stephen Covey's book, right? I also think about Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And one of the things he talks about in that book is that we always talk about you got to have the right people on the bus. And in his book, he says it's not enough to have the right people on the bus. You got to have the right people in the right seat on the bus. So the point
That's
is
true.
that identifying who's going to do what to be able to make this thing move forward, I think is really, really important. Everybody's got different schedules, different skill sets, different relationships. And so, you know,
Are there any other action items we want to leave this room with? We're talking about a meeting, a Zoom meeting that BJ's putting together.
Let's not overcommit, guys.
I'm just,
because
I'm just asking.
it's important to try to establish a short-term timeline. Because if we leave here with no timeline in terms of what's actionable, next week everybody's forgotten about it. So if we can say, let's try to set up a Zoom meeting, say, for the next 2 weeks, or in the next 30 days, or whatever.
how about let's not leave this room? We don't have to do it live on here until we find the date. Okay, there we go.
Okay, we can do that. I think we're going to call. We've gone over. Let's give our panel a great round of applause for all these good ideas. I feel a little bit of momentum here. Bill, Betty, I thank you for all your good thoughts here as well. And okay, let's pick a date.
Let's get the calendars out. Come on.
Tomorrow.